Since we recently witnessed Jordan Binnington getting suspended, I thought this would be a rather interesting topic to cover. Despite the fact that goalies routinely witness their peers receiving suspensions, when it comes to the league's masked men, suspensions are a rarity. In this video, we're going to go back in time a little and discuss some suspensions that were dealt decades ago, and then finish off with the much more recent affair. But before we embark on the journey, I'd like to invite you to support my channel by shopping with Fanatics. If you're looking to get some fresh NHL merch, consider using my link below while doing so. And with that, here are 4 times that NHL goalies were suspended. In case you weren't watching hockey in the 80s, Ron Hextall had a similar demeanor about him that Jordan Binnington does today, meaning that Hextall had the tendency to lash out at opponents on the regular, so much so that he found himself receiving lengthy suspensions due to his antics. Now, obviously, by the time the Stanley Cup Finals come around, tensions are extremely high, and therefore, the intensity level is off the charts. And for Hextall, the nerves he experienced in the final round of 1987 were too much to handle. After witnessing Wayne Gretzky notch 4 assists that put his team up 4-1 on Philly, Hextall, by the third period, began to unravel. After being slashed by Glenn Anderson during the winding minutes of the third, Hextall decided to deliver his revenge onto the next Oiler that came within reach. And that unlucky victim happened to be forward Kent NILSSON. But instead of giving a retaliatory tap equal to what he received, Hextall appeared to take a forceful golf swing and brutally slashed NILSSON in the back of the thigh, causing him to instantly fall to the ice in pain. U.S. announcer Bill Clement called it a cheap shot and a no-class move, and the league apparently felt the same way, as they suspended Hextall, who was set to start his sophomore season, for the first 8 games as punishment. Despite this though, Hextall showed no remorse for his actions, saying, "It wasn't frustration, just retaliation. He hit me on the arm. I don't think that was necessary. I don't regret what I did. Why would I regret it?" he said. Up to this point in time, as the Ottawa Senators prepared to face the Buffalo Sabres at home, DELL, despite his prior actions, had never been on the radar of NHL player safety. As I mentioned before, the goaltender, even though he had been punished in-game on occasion, had never done anything that was deserving enough of a fine or suspension since entering the league. But due to the events that unfolded in a regular season game in Canada's capital, that all quickly changed. With a little more than a minute left in the opening frame of play, as Ottawa was up 3-0 on the Sabres, Drake Batherson, while venturing deep into Buffalo's zone, was instantly brought to his knees. While the forward was concentrating on retrieving the puck, he was unaware of DELL's calculated plan, as he fixed to position himself in an attempt to cheap shot Batherson. Batherson, who had been having a stellar season for the Sens up to this point, was forced to leave the game with injury, as the 23-year-old had sustained an ankle injury due to DELL's carelessness. Batherson, who was scheduled to appear for the first time at the NHL All-Star Game, was given a disappointing verdict, as his injury was decided to be long-term. Following some post-game comments from the Ottawa Senators and hockey media in general speaking out against the hit, NHL players' safety acted and dealt the perpetrator a 3-game suspension for interference. In result, DELL will be losing out on around $11,000 in salary.
I was just trying to buy some time for my defenseman and step into his lane. I hope he's all right. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody.
In the latter stages of the second period, shortly after Ryan Hartman scored a goal that broke the 4-4 tie, Jordan Binnington became unhinged. After Hartman made contact with the netminder near the crease, Binnington crashed the Wild's party by sucker punching Hartman mid-celly. However, in an effort to avenge his teammate, or to cross something off of his bucket list, Marc-Andre Fleury met Binnington thereafter. But unsurprisingly, the officials were having none of it, and worked hard to keep the goaltenders separated from each other. Immediately after, Binnington was ejected yet again from a game, as we also witnessed him getting the boot from a contest in the Steel City earlier this season. Anyways, this time around, it was for more than just running his mouth. And due to his actions, Binnington was also given supplementary discipline in the form of a 2-game suspension. In retrospect, one could easily surmise that Not one, but two goaltenders lost out in this situation. As far as Binnington is concerned, it's more obvious as to why. But for Marc-Andre Fleury, it was another attempt at dropping the mitts, squandered for the veteran netminder. Back nearly a decade ago, while still in Pittsburgh, Fleury also tried to duke it out with former Habs tendy Peter Budaj. Unfortunately for Flower, the officials were quick to shut that altercation down just as fast.
I saw Peter was at the blue line waving me, so I was like, alright, gotta give it a shot, you know.
Budaj's got his stuff off.
I never fought in the NHL yet, so I was like, maybe this is my chance, you know. The ref came in pretty quickly though.
Anyways, due to Binnington having to sit in the press box for a couple of games, he's set to forfeit over $64,000 of salary. And for some of us watching, that's more than we make in an entire year, just to put it into perspective. As we previously witnessed before with HEXTALL, playoff intensity didn't exactly mesh well with the netminder's psyche. And during the conference finals of 1989, HEXTALL yet again decided to unleash some fury onto his opponents. However, before we get into the incident that resulted in the goaltender's 12-game suspension, it's important to give a little backstory. Any spectator, really, that was taking in the series could tell by Game 1 that there was going to be bad blood in the remaining games, after Chris CHELIOS decided to lay a controversial hit onto Brian Propp. HEXTALL and the Flyers witnessed their teammate having to be carried off on a stretcher. Therefore, considering that the goaltender ended up targeting the defenseman, it's pretty fair to say that HEXTALL decided to take things into his own hands as far as revenge was concerned. Within the winding minutes of Game 6 of the series, as HEXTALL witnessed CHELIOS coming into Philly's zone, he saw an opportunity and jumped on it, pun intended, as HEXTALL literally did jump his opponents. In result, a scrum broke out between the two teams as the officials did their best to settle things down. Later on, after the dust settled, HEXTALL was issued a lengthy 12-game suspension in result. The overall sentiment, however, coming from Philly, was that it wasn't deserved at all. Reason being, due to CHELIOS' hit against Propp, he was incapacitated and sidelined for Game 2 while CHELIOS faced zero discipline. Therefore, as I alluded to, HEXTALL decided to pull a Bruce Wayne and sought vengeance for his teammates. And when questioned about the incident, Flyers GM at the time, Bobby Clarke, had this to say: "What Chris CHELIOS did to Brian Propp was far worse. Let's face it, this is one of the most severe penalties ever handed out, and it's an incident in which no one was hurt," he says. HEXTALL also defended his actions by telling the New York Times, "I didn't intend to hurt CHELIOS. I intended to fight him. I know I was wrong, but I also know what Chris CHELIOS did to Brian Propp was far more vicious than what I did to CHELIOS," he says. In conclusion, I have a feeling that Binnington isn't finished when it comes to having meltdowns. And considering that the Blues are going to be struggling for the rest of this season, and possibly for a short while, it will give Binnington plenty of ammo to go on. If you'd like to support me and my work again, you can do so by shopping with Fanatics using the link below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.